All right, so we are good to go. I'm Laura Scoville, as I said, the Wellness Company's showroom and warehouse operations manager. As host of the webinar, I'm going to do my best to keep our guests reined in. I know this is a topic they're both really excited about. And so with me today is Bakari Grant. He is our fearless leader and CEO. He brings a background in architecture and design and a passion for keeping up on the latest building techniques and challenges. And he's joined today by our guest and fellow construction and design specialist, Cedric Goose. Cedric is the owner of El Sobrani-based Nicest Construction, and he specializes in leading edge builds. So you guys are going to probably find this, but these two gentlemen have a lot in common, and it'll become apparent throughout today's webinar. So welcome, guys.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much, Laura, for a wonderful introduction, and want to welcome Cedric on as a honored guest today. Funny story, just a little bit of background, and I'll tell you another story about this later, about how I kind of found Cedric and we ended up kind of in this serendipitous friendship. But Cedric came by, I think it was a few months ago. As Laura said, we host our third Thursday, and Cedric popped in, and Laura's really great about our showroom and again building that sense of community. So one of the things that we always do here at Wellness is you'll get a name tag, and then she'll try to have something on there that promotes conversation. And I forget exactly what the question is, but it was pretty loose about things that we're excited about, things that we like to talk about. And first thing that came to mind is building science. It's something that I have a design background, a degree in interior architecture, and so building materials, healthy living spaces, converting old spaces and reusing those spaces is really important to me. And in the past few years, I've delved real deep into the building sciences, which is about healthy living spaces, eco-friendly materials, green building, and basically creating the most healthy living spaces and comfortable living spaces. And so I threw that on my name tag a few weeks ago, and then Cedric stops in, and I had been looking to meet up with him again, and we shook hands and kind of chit-chatting. I looked down, and he has building signs written on his, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. So we both obviously like to nerd out a little bit about this topic, but Laura's here hopefully to help us stay on topic and bring us back if we ever go too deep. So basically, the premise of today is, again, similar to all of our webinars. This is an ADU master series. ADUs are a great way to help solve some of California's housing issues. It's a way to utilize land that's already in place, while again preserving some of the green spaces that we have here in the state. So we're huge proponents of not only aging in place and using ADUs for that solution, but also ADUs as a solution for the overall missing middle housing issues that we're facing here in California. So ADUs are a great way to do that. And this webinar is to help anyone looking to do a DIY ADU, whether you're working with a contractor to do an ADU, or whether you're working with a company like WellNest, which really takes over the entire development of that ADU, meaning all the way from design, engineering, permit submittals, all the way through construction. So that's what we're here today to talk about. And we brought Cedric on as a great example. Cedric's building a beautiful home out in El Sobrani right now that I got the opportunity to tour a couple of weeks ago and hear about some of the amazing things that he's doing over there. So we'll throw that back and forth. And as always, I would like to give an outline of today, just so everybody knows exactly what we're going to talk about and what we're going to cover. We know it's your lunchtime, so hopefully you grab a sandwich and learn some stuff today that'll help you out. So today, we'll have a little bit of a conversation. Again, this will be more casual between me and Cedric. And what we're going to talk about are a few methods of construction. So a lot of people have questions about how we build. We do a prefabricated Wellness Pod Express, which is a tiny home on wheels, but we really focus on panelized building in the ADU space. So that's on foundation, and it's brought to your property in panels or sections. So we'll go a little bit deeper into that. But we're also going to talk about traditional stick built, factory built, or modular construction. Some people call it prefab as a generalized term. And then ADU kits, which is a new technology, sort of new technology that's being utilized for some of those folks that are looking to do DIY or save a little bit of money. And then we're going to get into materials. So we won't go real deep there. We'll try to touch on some of the more advanced materials and products that are coming out in the market that are really helping us reduce our footprint here in the construction industry. So a few things we'll talk about: HRV units or heat recovery ventilators, mini split heat and air units, heat pump water heaters. That's a big topic right now. Some insulation. We'll focus a little bit on rock wool and why we use that, but we'll touch base on some other insulations that folks use. Low E windows, which are, again, a great way to reduce energy use. And then LED lighting and low VOC products, paints, and finishes. So that's kind of the outline. Again, I'll hand it off to Cedric a little bit so he can do a small introduction about himself, as well as his company, Nicest Construction, which is one of the leading ADU builders as far as in this space, in this area, doing some really great things. So Cedric, welcome on.
Hey, thank you for having me on. You are definitely a nerd after my own heart. That was really funny meeting up at your showroom and that looking down and seeing building science. It was like, this guy gets it. Yeah, I'm Cedric Goose. I'm the principal of Nicest Construction. We build a very high performance ADU, but I like to call it a small house at the point that we're at. It's our main goal is to replicate these floor plans that we've been developing. We started in the middle of the COVID madness, right in the beginning of March there, when everybody was like wondering what to do. And we started with a 120 square foot high performance detached home office, which was, all the rage at that time. We really cut our teeth on building small structures with an architectural leaning, but that were also very high performance as well, and provided like a complete solution of air filtration and detached heat and cooling, and all the bells and whistles with a very good bone system. And over the past almost 4 years now, it's become a much larger version. So we have 1,000 square foot, 2-bed, 2-bath, detached ADU, very modern design, very architecturally driven, but also has a lot of features that, almost is like a homestead property, but stacked on top of each other into one layer. So you have a roof deck on half of that footprint that provides you an kind of outdoor living space. And on the other side is 500 plus square feet of solar arrays. So we're really trying to integrate a performance standpoint, an energy standpoint, a lifestyle standpoint into one building that is as large as you can get for an ADU in our area. So yeah, this is what I do. I really nerd out on all these different methods of construction, having come through our prototyping phase, and kind of like trying to pick which method is best for us. But like you said, there's different methods for different situations, different needs, and structures. So yeah, I'd love to dig into it.
Absolutely. And just kind of as an aside, this intense level of detail in building the structure, as Cedric said, these are becoming homes. These aren't sheds or boxes. And that takes me back to 2010, built my first tiny home, and it was a complete opposite. I mean, it was a shell of a home, meant as a studio, no heat, no AC. Bobby will attest to this. But it was the introduction for me into going tiny, into how these small spaces, how do you utilize design to make it more efficient? How do you utilize different materials to get the outcome that you're searching for? So we've evolved a ton since then, not only in our
Yeah,
but in the industry as a whole. So we'll definitely
like it's kind of an unfortunate you know an unfortunate turn of language. Sometimes you get into construction and a new term gets introduced, and then like all this stuff gets attached to it. So like like the ADU space can be like an ADU can be, yes, a small home that's extremely high performance. My ADU that I build is far higher performance than my actual house that I live in.
Yeah.
Versus, you know, what can also be called an ADU is like the thing that you get from Home Depot that really gets you the bones, you hope, and then it's up to you to like fit and finish and detail and get all of that, you know, to the actual finish line. So you're barely getting the beginnings of a home. And those two things both have the exact same wording. So, you know, we're playing in a very crowded space.
Yeah. But I
But you
mean,
really got to look at what you're getting.
it's the purpose of things like this, and I've spoken about this before. This is a 10-part series, but we're looking to push this forward again as we're looking to build housing, not sheds, not boxes, but housing throughout the state. We'll continue to educate. I think education is a big piece because, again, once you get these things that are called ADUs that aren't necessarily having these other considerations, you still have to do
Right.
finishing to bring these up to par to really make them a home. So
Right.
that's exactly why we're doing this here. So let's jump into it. No more waiting around. We're going to jump right in. Again, like I said, we're going to cover 4 different methods of construction. Again, they're all different elements or types, subcategories to these, but these are the basic construction methods that we're going to see in the industry. So first, we're going to talk about stick-built construction, or what people see as traditional construction. That's when you lay your foundation, you bring in 2x4s or 2x6s, you construct those on site, you build your roof rafters on site, and then you start closing up construction, and you see it all being done on site. Now, we're going to talk about just real quick some of the pros to that, some of the cons to that, and then we'll get your kind of feel on it, Cedric, and then I'll give my opinion about it here too. So some of the pros to stick construction are obviously customization. So you can customize your house pretty much how you want it when you get to the stick construction because they're doing it on site. So you got your architectural plans, your design plans, and you can get really detailed and precise when you're on site building. So that's one major benefit. Some of the downsides to a stick-built construction are things that we're starting to see shift in the construction industry, such as waste of materials. So you'll see a big old pile of waste over in the corner that has to get dealt with. Now there's some requirements in California on how you have to recycle and get rid of these materials to help reduce that waste, but that's one of the downsides. The other downside is obviously time. So it's going to take a little bit longer because you can get those customizations. They don't have to be pre-done in a warehouse or off-site, but it is going to take a little bit more time on site because you're doing those custom builds, those really specific detailed things on site. So those are some of the pros, some of the cons. What do you think about, or what's your opinion about stick-built construction right here in California, at least?
I mean, I like stick-built construction. You have to realize like this is the way that the country was basically built to provide affordable housing for all of us for the past 50 years. I think that it like your point about customization. I know a lot of architects who love being able to walk through something that's half built and be like looking at the space and looking at the light. Hey, can we put a window over there? Could we just put a header? Like cut those studs out, put a header and put a window, which is
not just architects
and homeowners and interior designers. Or, you know, there is a certain amount of adjustability when you're constructing something on site. If something is out of level, or there's a foundation issue, or as you're constructing a wall, you can construct it to correct that level. Whereas if you're placing something that's pre-built on an out of level or out of square foundation, those issues will carry throughout the entire home. Because you don't really get a chance to fix that. It's already built, it's already put together. You know, sometimes the finishes are already in this thing, and all of those things will play off these base issues that are on site. So there's a much higher standard for site conditions in other kinds of construction. So yeah, I think it's very forgiving. But the point about the waste, I was reading some article, and they were saying that on average, a home creates as much waste as the volume of the home. So if you build a house, you have another pile of waste next to the house that's almost the exact same size of the house.
Yeah.
And about a third of that is just framing material, offcuts, cut down sheet goods, and then those things like go into the landfill. Yes, wood does eventually get reclaimed, but it's an enormous amount of like haulage and coordination and dumpsters and disturbance. So it is a lot.
And I mean, to touch on two things that I think I'm really kind of lean towards as we've gotten to business, as we starting to build more and more of these homes. Now we have construction teams that probably build 50, 100 plus ADUs. And what we're seeing when you move from the typical kind of custom build homes of 2,300 square feet down to ADUs is that you still have that waste, but it's a little bit more controllable at the ground level, so to speak.
For sure.
And this is using a different system, but at the same time, one of our panelized builder vendors takes all of their scrap wood, which is, I mean, it's all sitting in the factory, so it's a little bit more controlled, you have less movement of the materials and carbon footprint, but they go and recycle that right away. So that goes straight into some OSB materials or some of these laminate pieces that we're now seeing even turn into 2x4s, beams, and other things. So it is really getting to a place where they're learning to deal with that waste a little bit. But two things that I'm really passionate about that I think are really important when we think about stick build are weather conditions. We're fortunate here in California. We're kind of lucky. We're now into November and we're still having
9 months of no rain.
70-degree days. But the reality of it is the majority of the country and the world really have to deal with some form of elements, whether that's too hot in Arizona trying to build in 100+ degree weather, or too cold where you got rain, snow, and other elements that affect construction. Now, just last year, we went through about 12 weeks of a rain season, which is long for us. We were going through a drought. But how that affects the on-site construction is a really big thing when you talk about material waste, if it gets damaged, or again, having to hold up construction during these winter months when we are expecting rain, things like that. That's been a really big consideration for us. So that's one downside to stick built. But one of the biggest upsides that I really have grown to appreciate is the ability to hire local contractors. I mean, when you go stick built, you're providing jobs to that community, and depending on how important that is to you, how important that community is to you, this is a really big opportunity, for companies to hire people of the community and have them build in their community, which not only builds up the physical infrastructure, but also builds up the morale as well as the community itself. So I think that's a big thing for us, being able to hire local. A lot of our jobs are in Oakland. We're third generation Oaklanders, so that's really close to our heart, being able to do those type of things. So that's another big couple of pieces of stick built.
Yeah, I agree on all those points.
So now we'll jump in, not to hold it up any longer. We're going to jump over to the panelized system, which I touched on just a little bit. Again, I'll run down kind of the basics of it, and then some of the cons, some of the pros, and then again, Cedric, jump in, and anything would love to educate our customers about it. So first off, what is panelized construction? So panelized construction involves prefabricated walls, roof trusses, or flooring systems. Typically, it's some amount of pre-built construction element. So say if you have a wall, it can be as simple as a 2x4 wall framed up and then taken to site. But now the advancements in the industry have made it so that even some cases you'll see sheathing on the side of that wall, which is that plywood on one side, which reduces waste, reduces time on site. And I've even seen it to where folks have evolved this as far as doing a full closed wall system with some of the MEP components in the walls. So that means some of your plumbing, some of your electrical, some of your mechanical elements are already in the wall, ready to go to site. So it's a really cool design method or construction method. I think it has progressed a lot. I mean, this isn't a new method. It's been around for 70+ years. Folks have been doing it for a really long time. I think some of the advancements in technology now are able to produce a better quality product that we can take to site. So some of the pros, obviously a little bit faster construction than stick built. You're able to kind of put up elements. I mean, I've seen some folks put up 2,500 square foot houses within a day or two, which is amazing. I mean, that's using cranes and a wide open lot and all the advantageous
Right.
environment, but I have seen it done. And then quality control, obviously, when we're talking building in a warehouse, where you can control the elements. A lot of these folks use CNC machines now where it's precision, nail precision put together. Even in steel framing, which we'll talk about a little bit, I'm sure. They're able to pre-punch the holes, make sure everything aligns really well. And then even when you take that on site, now you have a really plumb and square building. So those are some of the advantages. Some of the cons to this level of build are obviously limited flexibility, like we talked about earlier. You can't go ahead and change out all those headers or decide to move a wall here or there. Or if your foundation may be out of level even, it's a little bit more difficult to really get those walls plumb and level. So those are some of the disadvantages, on top of obviously still having to transport and install these huge wall systems if you're working on a bigger project. What's your familiarity with panelized system there, Cedric?
Well, let's back up. Then let me give a little bit of because I think a lot of people who have been around homes for a longer time, or maybe our older viewers are more familiar with kit homes of the 70s and 80s. And they had an absolutely horrible reputation. I get this question all the time, like, oh, isn't that like a kit home? I remember those things. They were terrible. They back then they were not able to control site conditions to the level that they really got to be controlled to do this kind of building. They could not get a foundation that was reliably flat, and verifiably flat before the kit showed up. The kit itself was built by hand, so there was all kinds of little errors, and you chase the same 1/8 of an inch problem all the way around the house trying to get the house square, and it wasn't possible because the panels are just not the right dimension. So those kind of errors did carry on to a bad reputation. But I mean, here we are almost 40 years later. We have CNC technology, like you mentioned. Everything is extremely precise. I'm talking like within 1 to 2 millimeters over 40 feet of length. They can get wall systems great, and we can also verify what's going on site with lasers and all kinds of other methods to make sure that we are marrying these two systems, what's happening on site and what's coming in to the site, perfectly in most cases. It's not always perfect, but I would say that the really good panelized builders are getting to that 90-95 percentile level of perfection. So we are, I guess, in the gradient of panelized, we build a panelized frame. So we do not bring in whole panels that have sheathing and insulation and everything in that. But we do bring in our framing as large steel panels, and that technology is really amazing. Like, you go to their factory and it almost looks like a 3D printer, or I don't even know. It looks like a gutter machine if you've ever seen one of those. It'll spit out a C-shaped channel that is already stamped with where it goes. It's pre-punched holes for all the electricals and plumbing to run through, and it spits out a bunch of these panels, a bunch of these studs onto a 40-foot table. They got 10 guys on either side, putting these together with all screws, and that becomes a large panel that goes on a truck, and the next panel goes on top of it, and all of that goes onto a huge trailer. Shows up on our site like the entire house shows up on a 50-foot trailer, and we unload that, and we're putting these panels together edge to edge, and that makes a wall. 4 walls make a box, and then your trusses on top make a frame. It was, when we were prototyping this on our first house, I was shocked. It was me and another guy with a screw gun, doing what would have taken 10 guys, 14 guys, doing traditional stick framing. We put this house up in almost 2 weeks with no heavy equipment. Would I do it with heavy equipment now that I have it? Yes. But it was possible to do. And it wasn't incredibly, it was you had to pay attention to what you were doing, but you could get very accurate with what was already put together for us. So our walls were like within 3 millimeters, which is less than an eighth of an inch across the whole front of our building. Perfectly straight. It just makes a lot of things easier.
And so
So
to your point, sorry, we
yeah,
we have done wood panelized systems, but we've also for our express units, because those are on the road and built for any climate, we do depend on that steel panelized system. Same exact process. I'll show a couple of pictures at the end for those who want to see some of our methods and materials and things like that. But yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, the precision nowadays is crazy when you see these machines. I mean, some of them, even for there's a company we use called Paradigm Walls. They have robotic arms that pick up the pieces, move the pieces, cut it, drill it to precision. And again, when we talk about that waste that's typically seen on site, when you use these panelized systems, they're able to utilize this waste in a controlled environment, which means they can take that waste, minimal carbon footprint, and deal with that right there on site, as well as making very precise cuts to limit the amount of waste that's in the first place. So,
and like you did say something about how many. I want to make this clear, like the amount of jobs that you're talking about with stick-built construction. There is still a place in panelized construction for people who have this earlier construction technology. There is a learning curve, yes, but like our guys who are fairly new, we're a very young company, are able to pick this stuff up and do more. We build more houses, we work on more jobs and bigger jobs than we would be able to trying to get 3 guys to lift an entire wall would be impossible. We need a huge team. So it's abundant. There's so much housing shortage and everything that you hear about every single day, and we don't have the manpower to just attack that full force and solve the problem. So plenty of work out there for everyone, even with these new technologies.
The good thing that I think gets overlooked a lot in these panelized system factories is we took a tour on one of the bigger facilities we use out in Fairfield. And I mean, they have specific jobs. So I won't call it, sorry, I lost the word for it. But when you're working in it's not like a factory line where you're just kind of pushing things along. It's still skill work. So you're still getting skills, you're still learning a skill, but the level of skill and the danger sometimes on job sites is so high that it does take a level of training before you're able to get out there. Some of these panelized systems are able to bring folks who have a general understanding of using a hammer, using a nail gun, using a screwdriver, and they can facilitate them getting work immediately. So it's still, again, providing a ton of jobs here in the industry that we need, obviously, here in California, here in our communities. They're really good there. All right, we're gonna jump along, not to hold it up too quick, or for too long, excuse me, onto factory build and modular construction. So this is what we hear nowadays. We have 2 different things that we typically hear. We hear modular construction or prefab construction. I'm gonna box those into one group just for the sake of this webinar, but basically that's where modules are built in a factory, whether that's a full room or a full house. In our case, it can be an entire ADU, is built in a factory, controlled, inspected in that factory, delivered to site, and then installed on site as a completed unit. Again, as Cedric mentioned, a lot of folks think about that typical manufactured home of the 70s, 80s, where technology now has really advanced to produce some really good homes. But again, everything has its place. So some of the pros for modular or factory built homes are obviously the speed of on-site construction. So they're building this in a factory. So obviously you still have the time that it's going to take to build. But by the time you order it and it gets delivered, that timeline can be cut down pretty significantly. And then again, quality control inside that controlled environment. So you're not worried about the weather too much. And you're still able to get that built while you may be going through winter, rain season, or again, more for northern climates and the snow and things like that. Some of the limitations for modular or factory built homes are obviously design and customization. A lot of these factories are built to build that home. They're not going to be able to say, hey, I want the bathroom on the other side a lot of times, or you're not going to be able to say, hey, you know, as a senior, I want lower cabinets or this type of sink. You have to kind of do those things after the unit's already built. So limited customizations there. And then transportation. That's one of the biggest things for us here in the East Bay Area, at least.
Yeah.
Entire Bay Area is now we're talking being put on the back of a large truck, craned in over a home through a neighborhood, and those are some of the issues that you're going to see. So again, there's always a place. Some of the advantageous locations would be some of those wider plains areas where you have a ton of space where these trucks can drive on your property, drop it off, no big issue. What we see here throughout the Bay Area, especially in the East Bay, is you still have some power lines above ground. We have homes in the hills. We have tighter driveways, streets. So it's more difficult for these transportation vehicles to get in there. So those are some of the disadvantages of modular or factory build construction when we talk about here in the East Bay. So do you have any experience or an opinion about factory build, Cedric?
I have a little bit of opinions. I think that, I mean, it makes sense, right? The more pre-built your project is elsewhere, the more perfect whatever you're putting it on or wherever you're putting it has to be.
Yep.
Your site in the modular game really cannot have any deviance off of flatness, squareness, where the anchor points are, because you're going to land this house and it all has to line up perfectly. If it doesn't, you know, if the slab is out of flat or something, and there's finishes already installed, say you have drywall or some kind of panel board inside, suddenly everything kind of shifts over a little bit.
Yep.
And even in the shipping container based homes that are the most rigid structure, you know what a shipping container does, carries a billion other shipping containers.
Yep.
Those things will still shift if they're put on a out of level slab. So a lot of times I've gone into some of these modular situations and I see drywall cracks and all kinds of other stuff, like, you know, that could have been prevented by installing that once it was put on site. So I think there is a continuum. It's about like what your finishes are, what you're ready to live with, and how quickly you need it, how your site is able to be accessed, like you said. All of these things are like a bunch of decision making that has to be done beforehand to like determine what the best technology is for you. There's no inherently bad technology. There's just a bad fit in certain situations.
The way to put it. Yeah, and I mean, that's something that we talk about with our customers early on. And again, why we suggest customers get in touch early on in your design or in your decision-making process is because, you know, we may have a customer that's not fit first because they are fit for a prefab and they are looking to do kind of that building, you know, that just may not be the right project for us. But again, get involved early. Talk, ask a ton of questions. That's why this webinar is here. Check out, we have 5 other parts of this series prior to this that should give you some really good questions that you can take to any company you're looking to work with when you're looking to build.
Yeah. I like that you do your due diligence on that, because, you know, some companies will not take that into consideration. They just say, you know, here are the conditions that we need at site. It's up to you and your general contractor to figure it out and make sure this is here on the install day. And that is the kind of situation and splitting of the job that causes all kinds of problems and coordination issues. So if you are like guiding your customer through that and giving them an idea of like, you know, we're working with a general contractor and we're involved in the process, and this is, you know, the true cost of this job and all these different moving pieces, that is very helpful. If I was a customer, that's what I would want. So that's how I would want to be treated.
Cedric, and that, you know, once you start going on this journey, I think a lot of people have been confused by the headline, so to speak. And the headline says ADUs are easy to build, right? And
oh God, don't get me started. 50K ADU install in 2 weeks.
Yeah, $4,000. You have a 1,200 square foot ADU in there. So, what that brings, it brings a really good point of, you know, there's a process, there's a journey, so to speak, that you go on when you're looking to build an ADU. You're building a home here in California, which means that
Yes.
they're going to legalize it for someone to live in that home. There are going to be certain stipulations that you have to abide by California code, as well as your state, your local code. And so
Mm-hmm.
when you start from the beginning, whether that's foundation, design, architecture, engineering, or the construction itself, there's all these different elements that have to be considered, not only in the cost, but also in that build project timeline. And when you work with one of those entities that isn't communicating with all of those entities, then sometimes there is a miscommunications or a lack of communication in between those transitions. Prime example,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I talked to a architect who has this beautiful design, but they don't communicate with the surveyor who did the boundary survey on my property, or they're not talking with the structural engineer who's designing the foundation for that property, or better yet, they're not in communication with the contractor who's going to have to build this unit on my property. So all
Right.
those lacks of communication or miscommunication is almost like the old school game of telephone. You know, it's like
Mm-hmm.
what they originally said in the beginning comes out completely different on the end, because there was no consistency and communication between all the different parties. So that's absolutely something we bring to the table. We're going to let you know if there's going to be something at the end, like a Cal Green certification that you're going to have to get before a final inspection. We have to talk to that with the original designer, because they're going to have to put that into the plan set in their you know, residential mandatory or residential mandates forms when they first submit their documents. So having that full line communication is extremely important whenever you're building a home, and that's what we're
For
doing.
sure.
So, all right, last one. We'll jump through pretty quick. It's kind of a combination of panelized and modular build. It's an ADU kit, which you mentioned a little bit earlier. A lot of folks are advertising this as, you know, your $40,000 ADU or your $70,000 ADU, but you still need your plan set, your permits, your engineering, your on-site work, plus finishing materials. So there's a ton of other things that go into it. So some of the advantages here, obviously, if you're a DIY person, if you're looking to be a project manager and a contractor, this is an opportunity for you to get a little bit of a head start. And basically an ADU kit by definition is you have a pre-designed unit, it's panelized typically, it's packaged up and delivered to your property. Then you take that off, you put it together, you build your foundation, and you construct. So that's a generalized definition, pretty loose there with it, because there's a range of not only types of kits, but also completeness of kits. And then some of the
Mm-hmm.
pros,
Yeah.
obviously, like I said, are if you're looking to save some money, if you're very familiar with construction, or, you know, you're comfortable in construction and you understand that this may be a longer project because you don't have all these other things considered. So maybe a
Mm-hmm.
route. Some of the cons obviously are, again, a lack of information provided with this ADU kit, meaning if you're not familiar with construction in your area, you may not know about, you know, the permitting, the engineering, the construction, the completion of the kit. And obviously, a lot of these kits don't come with finishing materials, which means after they're built, you still have to go in, close up the walls, put in mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and finish up paint and other flooring and things like that. So, any opinion on these ADU kits that are out there? And there are some great ones out there.
I think there are some great ones out there. I will say, like, even myself getting into construction, there is no. It's very easy to get stars in your eyes. You see these advertisements, you see these really cool Instagram videos, and and you want to jump and like get going and have your ADU in 2 weeks. And there's no one construction technology, even the most pre-built of pre-built things that shows up on your site that is going to solve all the entire project for you. You know, they could have the whole house on a truck fully done, and you still have another uh, third at least of the job getting it permitted, inspected, legalized, all the Cal Green, like all the stuff that we have to do um, to create a truly legal dwelling in our state. Other states have less requirements, and that may be the case. But you're still going to, in some capacity, have to act as the GC person, you know, joining all these different trades and getting to an actual finished product. It's a complex job. I think people can take it on in a DIY manner if they are persevering enough and determined enough and have enough time to do it. It's just not everybody has that. Yeah.
Yep,
So
exactly.
you could have any one of these different methods and the ADU could look the same. That is just a design difference. It's how you get to the finish line. Is that correct?
That's correct. So
Yeah, and how much time and resources you're willing to spend to get there.
Because I think people misunderstand the design differences for, oh, it must have been built this particular way.
Right. Yes, that is true.
and again, I think the biggest thing in the methods is, Cedric brought it up. One is price, what it's going to cost to get it done. But two is the precision or the quality that you're looking for as well when you're talking about what you're willing to pay for a certain product. So again, if you're getting a fully modular pre-built unit off-site, understand the additional costs that come with that. If you're going with the stick built, there's still additional costs that will come with just the construction. That's just a construction element of it. So design can be the same, architecture can be the same, structural will probably be different in a lot of these cases. But for the most part, you can have a home that ends up looking just about the same in a lot of these. Now, one thing that is important is when you are transporting a unit, so you're doing a modular unit, there's certain considerations that that the builder has to take into play here. So when that house is on the back of a truck, when it's getting craned up, when it's getting moved, if you do have a traditional drywall that's already installed, that's going to have much more likelihood of cracking, having mistakes, having things that are going to have to be either cleaned up or fixed. So what you see in the modular space a lot is some type of panelized interior wall as well, which makes it move a little bit easier. So there are some of those considerations. Yeah. And I mean, if you look at this house right behind you, Laura, that house has cement backer or cement lap siding on the side of it. Now, if you tried to pick that up with a crane or move that on a truck, all that's going to crumble, crack, and move. And that is one of the best materials as far as upkeep. And I won't say eco-friendly, but as far as upkeep, maintenance, and easeability to install, that's one of the simplest, especially in our area, to mimic the aesthetic of the neighborhood. So that will probably be different too. So you will see a little bit more vinyl or other material used in a mobile or modular home. So real quick, we are coming to a pretty close end, and I do like to leave time for questions. So I do have a small short presentation of some pictures of some of our projects. Instead of diving into the specific materials that I have listed, we'll kind of go through what we have as far as pictures and then just talk about some of the and general materials on site. So I'm going to share my screen here to talk about some of our methods, and then we can venture from there to talk in general. Let me know when you guys can see my screen there.
We're good.
I'll give a general commentary as you're going.
Yeah, exactly. Just jump in whenever you're ready. So first here we have a panelized method, which again, as you can see, this is built up in a factory space. These have roller tables. This is the more traditional method. So they're going to mark these pieces of lumber. They're going to put these together in a traditional method. This just cuts that timeline out from on-site construction, which again, these will be lifted all up, labeled, put on a truck. There'll be plans that tell you exactly how to put these together. So this is, again, that panelized system.
Yeah.
This is a version of that, kind of standing up in a warehouse, ready to go. Again, just kind of showing how they stack together, how they get put together. Here are some of those on the job site. Again, the beginning installation of them. Again, these are going to be done in a ton of different ways, real similar to stick-built construction. It can just cut down, as you can see on site here. There's a couple of guys, there's probably about 4 or 5 guys putting this entire space together, but that really does limit the necessary on-site cuts and other things that can typically cause issue on a job site.
Yeah, I really like this method because I think you get some of the benefits of true stick-built construction on site, and you also get some of the benefits of panelized. You get some of the adjustability, you get some of the weather resistance and all that stuff. Having it in a warehouse like that, really cool.
That's right. And so what I have here is our mobile unit. And what you can see here is from design concept. This is like we talked about earlier, this is a metal stud framed home. And so engineer put these plans together, designed them. This went into a CNC where they made the studs, made the tracks, drilled the holes, and had all those things delivered on a truck ready to go up as soon as we got them on site. And I think we have, you can even see here, our roof systems were panelized as well. So this house was ready to go as soon as we got it on site. Here is that same frame put together. So let me see if you can see it here. You can see some of the dimples that they have placed here. So all these screw holes are pre-drilled, ready to go as soon as we get them on site, which again, cuts down on time, cuts down on material waste, and we're able to still do a really customizable build and framing.
Are your builds coming to you as individual studs that you're assembling into panels in the warehouse? Are you doing that work, or is it being done by your vendor?
So we do it both ways. This one came as individual studs, pre-dimpled for all of our holes, pre-labeled all the way down to a T. This one was panelized outside of our warehouse and then was delivered to our warehouse and then delivered on site, which again, let us control timeline, weather conditions, things like that.
Yeah.
I don't have our other one. So if you look at here, this is a stick built unit because we had limited accessibility, but we were able to get our roof trusses panelized. So again, saving time on site construction, had some great engineering, things like that were still available. That was delivered directly on site. And we did have a secondary unit that we did where we had it delivered directly on site, fully panelized. So full range of the panelized system that we work with.
Yeah, definitely something. The thing when you panelize in steel, in this light gauge steel that you're showing, is that you can have bigger components that are still man carryable by one to two people. So you're not so reliant on huge cranes and everything. When you start getting into the panelized wood with sheathing on it, then those things become like 200, 300 pounds easy, and they're not movable by hand anymore. So it's harder to install without a crane.
That's right. So as you see here, roof trusses are one of the elements that we also get panelized for some of our projects. Even if it can be fully panelized, we can still take advantage of some of that time savings. Here we're moving into more traditional stick built construction. Now, what you're looking at here was a really custom job. We don't do a ton of these, but opportunities to do these are examples of why stick built is still so prominent in the construction industry. Is here you have a unique situation where we're updating a 100-year-old Victorian home where we aren't able to pull in panelized wall systems underneath that. We had to do some really custom framing work here that allowed us to still build in areas where it would traditionally be pretty difficult to build. This is that same job site with the full flooring in. This is a complete stick built construction. Again, accessibility to site, job site conditions made this a great option for stick built construction. So that's the route that we went here with this one. So,
Bakari, how does WellNest choose which method to use, or how does Nicest do that, Cedric? Like, of all of the options, does it just depend on the situation, or do you tend to lean one direction or the other?
I've built in a lot of different situations with my personal building company. I don't think I would build in a situation that wouldn't work with our prototype. We're very, very laser focused on our process and how we do it. But you know, it's really like, yeah, if you want the job, you have to do what is right for the customer in the situation. You can't just lean on one technology because you like it. You know,
Perfect.
if you're
so
willing
you can determine that with the customer ahead. Hey, in your situation, this is the best route to go.
For sure, yeah. But it's in the customer's interest, not just because that's what you like to use and you're trying to force your solution into that situation. Like I'd rather just not build in that situation.
A really, really good point. So for us, we're stick built or we're panelized when we do our traditional ADUs. And those are two methods that we use as a company, not only how we're built out as a company to operate, but what we, again, find best fitting for our, to best serve our customer. So
Right.
to Cedric's point is, you know, if they're looking for something that we just don't do, we don't try to mold what we do and try to convince them that we're the best company for them. Instead, we say, here's what we do, here's a reason why we do it, and here's a reason why we believe this is the best method to do it. And not to say that every situation is the same, because if you
Yeah.
live on you know, 2 acres and you have a wide open lot and you don't have a lot of time and you want to build during winter and have it ready for you in February, you know, I'm going to say those all sound like elements that might make you lean more towards modular construction. So,
Right.
but in these cases, accessibility, when we consider stick built versus panelized, because those are 2 methods that we do use, accessibility is a big thing. Pricing, customization are 2 other elements. So we have standard build.
Schedule.
Yeah, schedule. So we have standard builds similar to Cedric, where we have locked in builds, classic, our express unit, our 1 bedroom, our 1 bedroom plus. Those are all our standard units. We know we can panelize those in our warehouses, in our factories. When we start
Yeah.
moving into more customized designs, then we're leaning more towards a stick-built design for our customers, because that's going to be the most cost efficient for them and for us. Because if
Right.
we now have to change those operations, that's going to come with the cost of the customer. Whereas they may be they may easily proceed with the stick-built construction if time isn't necessarily a restraint. So again, to
Actually, that does remind me, this is actually important. The work to actually panelize a house, even if you're doing it just on drawings on paper by hand, is very significant. There is a lot of design work that goes into making sure these components are going to fit on your job site and fit together properly. So if you're doing it, panelizing a single custom house, there's a premium attached to that in terms of like design and R&D and all that stuff to get your house panelized. If it's a more of a repeating build or something that's been built very closely before, you know, those costs, those pre-production and pre-construction costs go down pretty significantly.
Yeah, I'll try to run along quick here, but as an example to what Cedric just said, this is a design house specifically made for our express unit. If this design is off a 1/4 inch here, then it may be off, or if this design is off a 1/16 of an inch here, it may be off an 1/8 here where these walls connect, a 1/4 here where these walls connect, and then we're off by a 1/2 an inch by the time we get to this other side, and now our roof system doesn't work, our interior walls don't work. So there is a ton of precision that goes into it. So when we talk about these more custom designs, it is absolutely most likely that it's going to be in the customer's favor to go with a stick build.
Yeah.
So what is the approach if that happens? So let's say you get something back and it doesn't fit like that. How do you approach it? And does that cost the customer more money or?
So for us, I mean, again, that's why we are involved from the start to the finish. So we can catch those things before they even become a problem. If we know this is a casual conversation, and that's one of the first things we caught is that, hey, if you're looking to do panelize, these are some of the issues that are going to come up, which means along this entire process, we're looking out for those issues. We're communicating with the design team, we're communicating with the construction team, so that if they do come up, number one, we should be ahead of it, which would be a cost savings to the customer and to us as a company. Number two, because we as a company do flat rate pricing, we eat those costs, we eat those mistakes and say, we thought this might have come up, we tried to prevent it, it still happened. Now we have to correct it because that's who we are as a company. So we don't pass those off to the customer. That would be on us.
Yeah, we do the same. And we also I was told very early in my career, like, don't tickle your problems around the house. You know, you find a place where you can fix whatever error is going on, and you make sure it is fixed in that one location and come up with a solution. And then so the rest of the structure can be unaffected. If you have an 1/8 of an inch there, you find a way to fix it right where you are so that it doesn't spread across the entire structure and cause all kinds of other problems.
And I know I can see now we're gonna have to definitely do a second show, maybe when we kind of switch.
Yeah, definitely.
Series, where we go pretty deep.
I was gonna say the same thing. I'm thinking, man, we need to dive into materials a little more too.
So I'll go through real quick and just kind of touch on everything, and then we'll come back and just kind of talk about what we want to talk about specifically. Here, what you'll see is a zip system on the exterior of the home. This is one of the reasons that I found Cedric, was just talking about this system, and he had it up on his home that he's building. And we really believe in this system, and we're constantly looking at ways that we can innovate to make this more usable, better fit for our builds, and use a little bit more. Here, what we'll see is vapor barrier insulation. On our traditional stick built homes that are on foundation here in California, we don't typically use a vapor barrier because of our climate. But in this express unit, again, we built these to go travel, be used in different locations. You could take these up to Tahoe or places where it will snow, where you're really going to want to control that vapor moving from your hot area inside to those cold areas outside and through all your wall systems. So that's something I'm gonna use there. Here's an example of, you know, what we see as quality installs when we talk about working with the trades. Sometimes you'll look at these and they'll look like a spider's web with wires going all over the place and all kind of things. We really like our contractors, the folks that we work with, to do precision work, clean work, so that we keep our job sites on point. Here, you'll see a few different elements that we like to point out. Number one is our HRV unit up top, which is a forced air system. Again, keeping really tightly controlled homes, which means we don't let a ton of air in. We keep the vapor from getting into our walls. We like to control the humidity of our environments. We also like to control the pollutants that come in and get pushed out. HRVs are a really good way to do that, because it basically takes the air that's been conditioned in the home. It does a heat exchange or humidity exchange as it exits that fan, and then it brings in fresh, clean air into the home, which again keeps our environments nice and healthy, especially for our senior demographic. That's a very loose explanation of an HRV. Next, we have a mini split up here, which is our heat and cooling system. Again, controlling the environment so you don't have an open window trying to cool down a space, letting in a bunch of pollen or pollutants, but instead really controlling the temperature in your environment.
And saving a ton of energy too.
And saving a ton of energy. One of the most energy efficient appliances we use.
Yeah, I was going to say it saves on ductwork and all of that extra stuff too, right? It just is on the wall and it works like a charm. So,
right. Here's a quick shout out to one of our partners. This is something that's near and dear to our heart. It's Palisade Wall Systems, which here it looks like a large style tile, which is very popular right now. It looks like a marble. What this is a laminated product that reduces the impact. Again, when we talk about seniors being in showers and bathrooms, a space where it's typically you see those falls, those major injuries either to the head, hip, or otherwise that cause, you know, hospitalizations. We like to reduce as many hard surfaces as possible, and Palisade Wall is I believe it's warranted for up to 20 years, completely waterproof, no grout lines, completely sealed up. Is easy to install, but also reduces those hard surfaces in the shower. So this is something that we really push for our senior customers to help reduce some of those shower injuries.
Yeah, I couldn't believe how good that material looked when you showed it to me in your showroom. It's very, very smart solution.
We love that one. This is another one that we are big proponents of, and we obviously push as one of our major elements in our senior spaces. This is our soft fall flooring. Most people see it in this version, which already has some type of laminate on top, but this is how it gets delivered. This is how it gets installed. And basically this is a rubberized, it's not a foam, it's a rubberized subfloor that reduces the impact of a fall by 90%. Now, when we talk about reducing that impact of a fall, again, for the senior demographic, one of the leading causes of either illness or death is from hospitalization from a fall injury. So again, that means that you take a fall, you get an injury, you have a blood clot that progresses. You take a fall, you get an injury, you get pneumonia that progresses.
Pneumonia, yeah.
Yeah, so this is where we really focus on is those falls, trying to prevent them. Grab bars are obviously a big one, but this soft fall flooring, and then we make it beautiful with our laminate product, which is just like every other laminate product on the market that we can put across any type of our floors, including our soft fall floors. So if you get a chance to feel those when you're in our showroom, it's a great product.
That's cool.
This again is an HRV unit we use in our bigger ADUs. This is a Zender Comfort Air 70, which can basically exchange the air for up to 400 square foot unit. This one here is our This is our Lunos E260. So this one is a smaller HRV system. It's a 2-fan system. One pulls air in while the other one scrubs it and takes, or sorry, one scrubs air and pulls it into our unit, and the other one takes all of the bad air and pushes it out of our unit. So that's a Lunos E squared 60. So again, we use these. We can use these in any of our units, especially for our senior demographic. All right, so I think I got through that. Sorry, everybody, for running a little bit over there, but if you have anything kind of on those products, Cedric, please jump in, and then we can answer any questions that have popped up so far.
I don't. Our units are a bit bigger, so we kind of use the big brothers of all those same products, but the techniques and the theories are the same. Like, houses don't need to breathe. People need to breathe well. Houses need to be well insulated, well sealed, and have their air quality controlled. That is, I would say, at least half of the experience that you get when you get into a really high performance, well built home is the quality of the air, the light, the sound, all those inputs that are coming into you as a human being. There are levels to those. So I highly encourage anybody who's watching this webinar, take a tour of WellNest showroom, take a tour of their products, and just spend some time in it. Or if you're in El Sobrante, East Bay area, you're welcome to swing by our job site. I'd love to give you a tour and show you around what we do that differentiates us from I would say a lot of people in the market. Yeah, that's probably all I got.
Nice. And kind of the last thing I will say is, again, low VOC. So when you talk about a healthy living space,
That too, yeah.
a big part of what we do. And if you aren't familiar, please reach out, ask questions. But VOCs are the volatile compounds that live inside a home and different materials that you may use. So anything from paints, glues, finishes, cabinets. That's part of our
flooring.
Flooring. That's part of our Cal Green inspection. So low VOC paints and finishes is a huge part of what we do.
Yeah.
I do have one question here from one of the attendees that wants to know how many ADUs you can put on your property.
Go ahead.
I'll take you take that one. You take that one. I was gonna say it kind of depends, but that's the standard builder answer.
Absolutely. The standard answer for any project specific question is it's going to depend on your project. It's going to depend on your city. It's going to depend on what that house is zoned for. So technically, every home in California can ultimately build 4 ADUs. That's the technical answer. But there's a caveat to that, or excuse me, 4 homes can be on your property, which means 3 ADUs. Now, how that happens in a traditional or by the book would be you have a single family home, you have enough property to build a second ADU. Then you do a SB9 lot split on that property, which means you completely separate those 2 units. And then each of those units can build on an ADU to that. So a J ADU for one and a detached ADU for the other, which ultimately gets you 3 ADUs on that property plus the main dwelling. Now, that's the technical answer. But again, that's going to be city by city, project by project based, depending on the space, the accessibility, and what type of unit you're trying to build as an ADU.
Right.
Oh, it's something that's a good idea. You get an assessment, talk to one of our companies, talk to whoever you're going to use, have somebody look at your property and assess what you can do.
Yeah. If you need a rule of thumb, look around your property. If your home is dead center in the middle of your lot and you don't have, I would say, 20 to 30 feet in all directions, you're probably not going to be able to split that lot in a way that would allow you to build more than maybe 1 ADU. Yeah. That's kind of like what I look for when I'm looking at land.
Yeah. And your typical, if you're not looking to do a lot split, you can typically convert an interior space to a J ADU and then do a ADU. That's your typical what most properties are going to allow for.
Right.
And again, to Cedric's point, that lot split is still a minimum 60-40 split. So you can't have more than 60% of that property dedicated to one of those homes. So without the correct amount of space on that property, you're still limited. So Yeah, I would say again, we do free consultations. If you're interested and want more information, we'll come out and just check it out and chat with you, let you know what is most likely going to be able to be built on your property. And then we take it from there. And if you want to continue with us, you can. And if you don't, again, you get a ton of great information.
Yeah.
Can't beat free information.
Can't beat
I was
it.
gonna say, Cedric, to get a hold of him, his email is Cedric, Cedrick at Nicest, and like Nancy, ISUS.construction. For us here at the WellNest, you can email me directly. It's Laura, LAURA, at wearewellnest.com. Yeah, definitely. We really appreciate having you guys on here and explaining some things about just the building and understanding the differences. And
Yeah. We got to do a part 2. I feel like we didn't cover enough.
I feel like a part 2 would be good.
Yeah, definitely.
If we got to sit down, this would be a 2-hour session. So I don't know if that's good
Yeah.
or bad for folks listening, but
See what nerds are. We're still with us after 2 hours.
that's right. But
Yeah.
we are looking to continue this after again, my biggest the biggest thing I want to get out of this is that folks get informed. ADUs are a great way to add housing here in California. So whether you're doing a DIY, working with a contractor, working with a developer, or working with anyone to build an ADU, we want to simplify that process. We want to make sure that you have all the information you need, asking the right questions so that you do it the right way, so that we can continue to add housing here in California.
For sure.
If we continue to do this after our webinar series, it'll be heavily based on the feedback that we get. So if you like the series, please let Laura know. Call in, go on Google. You can leave a review on our Facebook, Instagram, or otherwise, and let us know that you like the information, that you think it's helpful, and we'll keep producing this information. One last thing. I'm going to throw this in there for everybody that decided to stay to the end because it's special. There is that $40,000 pre-development ADU grant that they're reinstating after the last grant. Last time they did $100 million. It went out extremely fast. Everybody was on that thing within the first few days, and it got used up really quickly. They do $25 million dedicated to go back out at the end of this year. They just let us know that they are giving those funds for folks who have who make up to 80% AMI. So that was a really big indicator. So if you make 80% or less AMI of your county, you can apply for that loan. If you want more information about that loan, get in touch, email Laura, email myself. We'll get you in touch with someone who can help you through that application process, because as soon as they open up that portal, which they're giving more information at the middle of November, as soon as they open up that portal, it's going to go extremely fast.
Is it a loan or a grant?
It is a grant. It is a $40,000 grant that they're giving based to do pre-development for your ADU. So even after all fees and everything else, you're still going to end up with probably around $30,000+ to spend on all your pre-development costs, which is I think a great asset. Obviously, the state's pushing for that. But if you want information on that, get in touch. Make sure you're tuning into these webinars, and we'll try to get you that information.
Yeah. Our next webinar is actually going to be the day before Thanksgiving, the 23rd, Wednesday. We're going with universal design on senior-friendly ADUs. So definitely be in touch for that, and we will send out that information as we get closer.
Cool.
And,
all right,
thank
you
both
again
for
so
your
much.
time.
Thank everybody for jumping on.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Have a great rest of your week, everyone.
All right.
You too. Bye.
Bye.